Across the country right now, families are feeling real pressure when it comes to rising interest rates, higher prices, and credit card balances that never seem to go down. It's really overwhelming, and for many, it feels like there's just no way out. But Iconic Debt Relief is helping Americans fight back. Their team takes the time to understand each person's situation and build a plan that can lower monthly payments and ease that constant stress. For so many families, the relief is truly life-changing. If debt has been weighing on your shoulders, don't wait. Instead, call Iconic Debt Relief now and take the first step towards getting your life back. The information and the QR code there at the bottom of your screen. Terrence Bates here with your Real America's Voice news break. Thanks so much for being here with us. It is Election Day across the country, and polls from the Midwest to the East Coast to the West Coast are already open. Today is the first major election day since President Trump took office back in January. Among the contests being watched most closely are gubernatorial elections in Virginia and New Jersey. The GOP candidates in both of those states have aligned themselves with President Trump and are hoping to ride his coattail to victory. New York's mayoral election also has the nation buzzing as self-proclaimed Democratic socialist Zoran Mamdani is polling as the frontrunner. Even President Trump jumped into the fray, saying if Mamdani wins, it's highly unlikely that he'll send federal funds to New York. He also says the Big Apple has, quote, zero chance of success or even survival under Mamdani's leadership. We'll, of course, have live results for you this evening here on Real America's Voice starting at 7 o'clock Eastern. A whistleblower says British news agency, the BBC, quote, doctored video of President Trump's January 6, 2021 speech at the White House in advance of the now infamous protest at the U.S. Capitol. The concerns are related to a BBC documentary titled Trump, A Second Chance. The company's former editorial guidelines and standards committee advisor, Michael Prescott, claims the program misled viewers by splicing together clips of the then outgoing president's speech in order to make it seem like he incited what later happened at the U.S. Capitol. The misleading clips are said to be 54 minutes apart. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'm Terrence Bates. We will
not comply. You're listening to the sound of freedom. It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show. I want to tell you really quickly about one of our partners here. You see, Charlie, he built a thriving community through conversation on a place called TikTok. And he went from not liking it to really seeing the power of it. And really, it had a profound impact on the election. We're talking about elections today. So just imagine what is capable through these discussions, these dialogues, these back and forths on TikTok. TikTok offers opportunities for respectful exchange of ideas, and through that, opportunities for community. Not to talk over each other, but to talk with each other. On TikTok, you'll find creators who teach and encourage, a carpenter passing on his craft, a mom explaining how to make a budget stretch, or a gardener showing us how to bring a backyard back to life. Different stories, same drive, the desire to connect and understand and to share ideas. That's what makes a strong community, a common desire to connect, to find a way forward through respectful dialogue, building trust and feeling heard, freedom to speak what we know and to hear each other. That's the power of TikTok. It gives everyone a seat at the table, a place to speak, to listen, and remind each other that what connection looks like. Conversations build connections, and connections build communities. Portions of the Charlie Kirk Show are sponsored in part by TikTok. All right, so we're going to have Dr. Oz joining us in just a second. I'm waiting for confirmation that he is, in fact, ready to go. Looks like he's just getting seated. But here's one of the things. This is why we're having Dr. Oz on an election day. So, and actually, I think he's ready right now. So, Dr. Oz, can you hear me? Are you seated? You ready?
Seated, ready in my office, actually, in Washington. I'm
awesome.
Anxious to see what you're going to say about the election.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this has been a really, it's an honor to have you on. I know you came on the Charlie Kirk Show multiple times with Charlie, both when you were running for Senate and then later on as you've been part of the admin. Charlie would be here. Unfortunately, if you can get the wide shot, we have his open chair here. Jack just did a beautiful tribute to Charlie that Charlie would be begging everybody across the country to vote in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Virginia. in New York City. And unfortunately, he's not here today. So, sir, the floor is yours. I know you had a personal friendship with Charlie. You texted often, and I just want to give you the opportunity to remember him in your own words.
Well, kudos to you for carrying on the legacy. I spent a lot of time with Charlie. He was very helpful. We got to know him quite well during the campaign. But we also stayed. I saw him the last time here in Washington in June, and we were going to do a show. We were at a meal together, and the bombing of Iran happened. So we said, well, you know what, we'll do it in September. And it speaks to the unfortunate reality that life is so unpredictable. I'm not going to take everyone through the trauma of that whole experience. Obviously, I joined the president when we flew out to the event in Phoenix, which was one of the top, memorable moment in my life. And I've had lots of interesting experiences. But I think it speaks to the power that Charlie and the whole movement has had in waking people up to some of the dishonest narratives that we've been tricked with. But it sort of goes back, I think, very fundamentally to respecting some of those Judeo-Christian traditions that so often have guided us into successful relationships, raising wonderful families, living in communities that are functional. And when we don't honor some of those basic principles, we are in the trouble. And on this election day, one of the many things that's being evaluated is this government shutdown. And I thought I'd use this maybe as a jumping point to speak to those very values that Charlie would, and you and others would speak to. We are in a nation that treasures work. We believe in our country that business is good, and you want to work in business, and you want to do good things for your community through those businesses and build value in society and do things that fix problems, all the things that many of us grew up, I think, believing was incumbent to our opportunity as Americans. Yeah. And many people came from other parts of the world because they know and found out that America actually still does those things that their country stopped doing, like go to work, play a role in improving society, have agency over your own life, because it matters. God put you here to do something. And whatever that thing is, go out and do it. So when we faced, as we came into the administration, a reality that Medicaid was basically insolvent because of some of the things that have been done during the pandemic, but some of that predated the pandemic as well, we had generated a system that just was not going to be functional for much longer. That would put our most vulnerable at risk. I'm sitting in the Humphrey building in Washington, right across from the Capitol. As you walk into our building, there's a quote from Hubert Humphrey, and it says it's he uses light as a metaphor. It is the moral obligation of government, he says, it's the moral obligation of all of us, to take care of those at the dawn of life, children, those at the twilight of life, the seniors, and those who are living in the shadows. Now, again, that haunting metaphor is powerful. It feels almost biblical. So if you're going to protect our most vulnerable, you can't allow fraud, waste, and abuse to strip it of its vitality. So the president very directly told me to preserve, for example, Medicare, don't touch Medicare, don't hurt the folks who are vulnerable on Medicaid, but take the fraud, waste, and abuse out of the system. We have been doing that, and we're going to continue to do that. And the Democrats have shut down Washington, shut the government down, because they believe that the one big beautiful bill, which codified many of the things that make sense to clean up Medicaid and protect it for the most vulnerable, were wrong. They want to, for example, allow illegal immigrants to continue to get funded for their health care benefits. This fundamentally changes the equation. Democrats don't like there's a work requirement. But we tell people, fine, if you're in a difficult spot, we'll pay for your health care. But you need to actually try to get a job. And if you can't get a job, go volunteer somewhere. Go take care of somebody. Go get an education. Do something to reinforce what you should know deep down inside, which is God's got a plan for you, and go act on it. And these are fundamental differences in how folks are seeing the future of this country. I believe because work is so fundamental to who we are, that we should have a work requirement. I believe that if you're an American citizen, you should get support for your health care. But illegal immigrants coming here and induced to stay here because they're given free health care, that should not be part of the equation. Certainly, the federal government should not be paying for that. And we know, for example, and just not to get into too much of the weeds here, that there are some states, there are 6 in the country, 6 out of 50 states, allow separate money to be paid to illegal immigrant health care from their state budgets. They claim. And of course, that allows them to recruit and retain illegal immigrants, despite what federal law is around coming across borders illegally. And they think that's okay. And now we are just identifying, breaking news, I'll share it with you, that we believe is over $1 billion that has been taken from federal tax money to support these programs. In fact, they're starting to pay us back, so I'm pretty sure we're right.
Wow. Well, that's breaking news. So $1 billion you've identified that's basically fraud. It's basically fraud that the states are using improperly. So I wanted to play a clip for you, and I do think it's election related because, you know, there is some polling out there that would indicate that the American people want to focus more on domestic issues, more on cost, healthcare, things like that, as opposed to foreign issues, foreign policy. And I certainly share that belief. But one of the reasons that I think this resonates is because Democrats' messaging, and I hate to say it, but I think it's been a little bit more disciplined in this, especially this election run-up, than some of the Republican counterparts. They are talking about health care, and I wanted to play this clip for you from Rachel Maddow. And it's in relation to the government shutdown, where she's basically saying, well, if you strip these subsidies out of Obamacare, the ACA, then all these costs are going to go up for Americans, right? Now, Republicans have been warning about these subsidies for years, that they're going to make Medicaid and Medicare insolvent in the long run. But I want you to give you a chance to respond to this and debunk this. 137.
Look at these numbers from the New York Times tonight. Based on the newly posted information, meaning the pricing information that's now being posted in multiple states, a family of four making $130,000 in Maine. So you combine the family's income, everybody's salaries, you got to do $130,000. That family would face an increase in their annual health insurance premiums next year of $16,100. That's how much their health insurance premiums would go up. This is what Democrats have been drawing the line about in this shutdown, telling Republicans that this is the thing they need to fix.
Dr. Oz, this is your world. Respond to Rachel Maddow, because that clip on Facebook, by the way, had like 100,000 likes. So a lot of people are seeing it.
So President Obama, who created the Affordable Care Act, right? It's called Obamacare. When he pushed through Congress in a very partisan way the Affordable Care Act, there was funding for people who are at the poverty level. The question then becomes, how do you define the poverty level? Well, they defined it as 4 times more than poverty. So if poverty level, let's just make a number up, is $16,000. Make it the math simple. Make it $20,000 the poverty level. Then 4 times that for an individual, $80,000, is how much they were willing to cover. They weren't going to cover 5, 6, 7, 8 times the poverty level. They just had to pick a number. We all do. So Obamacare did not cover people who are making more than 4 times the poverty level. And for that reason, when they added these COVID benefits, and they were purely added because we were in a pandemic and a war, and they were added for a very short period of time, and they were set to end when the pandemic ended. Are we out of the pandemic? We're out of the pandemic.
Of course.
We should not have pandemic-era wartime rules when we're at peace. So the Democrats wrote the law. It expires at the end of this year. And so it's their decision. They knew it was supposed to expire. Original Obamacare never covered people making 4 times Medicare. Rachel Maddow just picked an example of someone who's making whatever it was, $150,000 a year, who was making more than 4 times Medicare. Therefore, they were not ever eligible for Obamacare. And she's complaining that what was done during COVID as a stopgap measure to deal with the pandemic is now expiring. So that's a problem for the Republicans. We were even willing, despite all that, to negotiate and talk about some of these issues, but only if we find a true solution to the fundamental flaws in a broken system. Obamacare pricing has increased so much faster than anyone ever imagined. It is becoming unaffordable even when the government is paying for it. But that's not what the Democrats wanted. They want to hold us hostage. At the last moment, they say, forget about it. If you don't, with a gun to your head, agree to extend all these subsidies and just pay, forget about dealing with the costs, just pay for it, we're going to hold you up. And the president, very wisely, very bravely, together with congressional leadership, said, no, we are not going to be extorted. You guys caused this problem. It's your issue. We will help you fix it, but don't blame it on us. And yet, the legacy media, New York Times, good example, they tell stories that are literally like Aesop's fables without the morality.
I think that's really well said. And I'm sitting to my left is Blake Neff, one of our producers here on the show, Dr. Oz. And one of the things you rail about, Blake, and we're running out of time here, I wish I could give you the floor, is that just when you get somebody addicted to a government subsidy, it's really
It just becomes permanent.
It becomes permanent.
Everything becomes permanent.
And that's what we've seen. So the whole narrative that we're trying to strip health care from people, no, this is COVID-era spending that is unsustainable. We have to do something to bring it back. Yeah, we want to make health care more affordable, but this is not the way to bankrupt the country.
But if I can just jump in there, because I do think it's critical. What is the average amount of premium that an Obamacare recipient will get next year after all these things that Rachel says are so horrible expire? It's going to be $50. That's it. It's $13 more than this year. That's the whole battle. Literally, the average person is going to be asked to pay $50 for a month for their insurance. You ask me, anyone out there working on their own dime, getting paid from a commercial insurer, would you take an insurance policy for $50 a month? That's $13 more than last year. You'd say, I can handle that. That's a cup of coffee a day. I can manage that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really well said. I mean, listen, at some point, we have to say no. We have to say no, and we have to reform some of these structural issues in our healthcare system that are driving up costs. But here, I mean, listen, that was the whole exchange with Obamacare. A bunch of people who couldn't afford it, we were going to pay for it. Of course, that's going to make costs go up for everybody else. Okay, I mean, you can't wave a magic wand and make this stuff just disappear. But you cannot also bankrupt the whole of the U.S. government to keep subsidizing these runaway costs. I mean, you just can't do it. I mean, we'd love to. We just can't do it. Dr. Oz, great job. Thank you so much for joining us. You honor us and you honor Charlie. Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you. All right, we will be back in just a minute.